Clash of the Xenoroids. As Xenon had become much stronger, he decided that he wanted to start looking more actively for clues about restoring his memory. In order to do so, he realized that he would need to go back to Glimmer's secret laboratory. He returned to Veritas and spoke with Rudy, who told him that according to the Resistance's intel, the lab was closed. She added that most likely Glimmer would have destroyed anything that would have been useful to Xenon. Nevertheless, Xenon told her that he still wanted to go back. Rudy told Xenon that she would accompany him and suggested that he tell Professor Dreamboat. The professor warned that Glimmer would have installed traps and cautioned them to be careful. With that, he sent them to the entrance of the laboratory. Upon arriving, they were surprised to find that it had been abandoned for some time. They also saw that Glimmer had installed new guard robots, as he knew that Xenon would one day return. After fighting their way through their defenses, Xenon and Rudy arrived at the prison where Claudine had once been captured. As they proceeded deeper inside, a force field blocked the entrance to the testing center. Xenon broke through the barrier and continued into the lab. There they discovered the main control device, which Rudy plugged into. However, she realized that the internal components were completely broken and asked Xenon to bring some parts from the guard robots in order to fix the device. After repairing the computer, Rudy began to access the data, but Blackwing henchmen quickly appeared to ambush them while Rudy was plugged in. As she couldn't move, she asked Xenon to fight them off. He managed to defeat the henchmen while Rudy gained access to the data. Though most of the data had been corrupted, Rudy managed to restore bits and pieces and learned that the data itself was mainly a series of numbers and test results, noting that it became less comprehensible the older it got. She explained that she had only been able to find words such as Edelstein, candidate, critical error, and obstacle removed. Rudy suspected that Glimmer had felt as though the Xenoroids didn't fully obey him because of their memories. However, because he couldn't erase them all, he had tried to overwrite their memories with his soldiers' programming. Xenon asked if that meant that he would never get his memories back, but Rudy reminded him that he had managed to remember some of his past, and so there had to still be traces of his emotions and memories within him. She suggested that they return to Veritas and asked Professor Dreamboat about it. When Xenon continued to stand still, she asked if he was disappointed that he hadn't been able to find anything useful. Xenon asked her if the emotion that he was feeling was disappointment, explaining that despite knowing that he may not have found any clues, he had still kept hoping. Rudy promised him that they would find another way and suggested that they go back to Veritas. Author's note. Unfortunately for Xenon, he's probably the only character in the game who can never get their full memories back. While other characters had their memories suppressed due to magic, the memories themselves still remain untouched in their minds. In contrast, Xenon had most of his memories physically overwritten by Glimmer, though some of them still remain. His cybernetic brain probably works a lot like how computer memory works. On a computer, deleted data isn't necessarily removed, but rather it's marked inaccessible with a special flag. That's why it's possible to recover deleted programs, as that flag is just removed and that segment of memory is made accessible again. It's highly likely that fragments of Xenon's memory still persist and can be made accessible again, but the vast majority of his memories were overwritten with Glimmer's soldiers' programming, and so there's no chance for him to ever get them back. I was wondering whether Alpha and Beta might be able to use their powers to do a localized rewind on Xenon's brain, but even then, it's hard to say whether that would work, as it might just end up that Xenon's current memories get erased in the process of getting his old ones back. After returning, they told the professor about the data which they had found. He assured them that he would review the data, though he recommended that Xenon rest, since he wouldn't have any new missions until they finished analyzing. He also reassured Xenon that he had done his best, as it must have been extremely difficult for him to have faced his past. Just then, Xenon realized that the laboratory had no data on Rudy's past either, and so he went to ask her if she was disappointed as well. She told him that she wasn't disappointed, as she wasn't curious about her past. She told him that she wasn't completely disinterested, but she liked her life in Veritas much better than she did with Glimmer, and that it was enough for her. Some time later, Nathaniel reached out to Xenon and asked for a personal favor. She explained that she was from Magatia, the home of all alchemies. Though the world of alchemy was split between the Xenomist and the Alcadnos, all the schools of alchemy were based on the mystic knowledge passed down in Magatia, with some of them even touching on the forbidden arts. And she explained that one of those techniques was life creation. Author's note: it's interesting to think just how much of a positive influence the Black Mage had on the world in spite of being a villain. The current infrastructure of Maple World, especially the free transportation that arose from advances in efficient fuel renewal from alchemy, can all be traced back to his influence. On a side note, the Maple Sea translation of life creation is dark alchemy, which initially created a whole deal of confusion for me when I was using Xiang's video as a reference, as dark alchemy was established to be the art of creating and destroying magical substances in the Demon storyline. Since the book on dark alchemy was also destroyed in the Demon storyline, I was very panicked about the chronology of Xenon's storyline until I decided to play the GMS version myself to double check and found out that it was an issue with the localization. Nathaniel believed that Glimmer had incorporated the forbidden art of life creation within his scientific knowledge in order to create Xenoroids. To confirm her suspicions, she asked Xenon to go to Magatia and investigate. However, she explained that the alchemists of the present day were very exclusive and cut ties off with each other in order to research their art. As a result, it would be difficult for an outsider to find out more information. She gave Xenon 2 letters written to the presidents of the Xenomists and the Alcadno, and assured him that if he were to give them her letter and mention her name, they would try to help him. Xenon first went to see Carson of the Xenomists and gave him the letter. Carson was surprised to hear from Nathaniel, as it had been many years since she had last made contact. He agreed to share his knowledge, but swore Xenon to secrecy. He explained that the forbidden art had originally been created by the Black Mage, which was why its existence could not be revealed to the public. He explained that Magatia was sustained by the remnants of the Black Mage's research, and that most of them were guarded in secret. He explained that life creation was one such secret until someone had recently stole it. Xenon was surprised to learn about its theft, and Carson added that he believed that the thief was an alchemist, as there was no other explanation for the technique used to penetrate the alchemic protection on the document. Though the Alcadnos denied the charge, Carson believed that one of their members was the thief. After leaving, Xenon was surprised to feel Beryl's pulse in Magatia. He wondered why she hadn't come after him yet, as they could clearly both feel each other's pulses. He supposed that she was too preoccupied with something else, but wondered why she was even in Magatia to begin with. He decided to avoid her until he finished his mission, and went to go speak with Maid of the Alcadno. After giving him Nathaniel's letter, Maid told him that the research on life alchemy had already been stolen months ago. He suspected that the Xenomists were trying to frame the Alcadno, and told Xenon that some strange men had been sighted around Magatia before the document had disappeared, and that the men had been clad in black and were dressed like rabbits. He suspected that the Xenomists had hired them in order to frame the Alcadno. As Xenon left the Alcadno headquarters, he was stopped by Han the broker, who offered to sell Xenon the information that he was after. After Xenon paid the fee, Han explained that the men who had been sighted in Magatia were trained soldiers, not alchemists. The men had been able to find the life creation the life creation document but they hadn't been able to access it because of a powerful truth-concealing alchemy placed upon the document. When the soldiers had failed, their commander had arrived in Megatia and had finished the mission themselves. Xenon realized that though the thieves were neither Xenomist nor Alcadno, the two factions suspected each other because no one except an alchemist could have undone the protection spell. Han the Broker added that the commander had met with Bedin, a Xenomist, and suggested that Xenon speak with him in order to learn what the commander was after. Xenon went to speak with Bedin, who asked him to find scorpion stings first. After Xenon brought them back, Bedin told him that the person who had spoken to him was actually a little girl. He explained that alchemists naturally didn't share their knowledge to those outside their circle, but the girl had appeared so pitiful that he hadn't been able to help telling her everything that he knew. Xenon asked Bedin what he meant, to which he explained that she had wanted to know about revealing concealed truths in order to save her brother, who was the only surviving member of her family. He had told her that he knew how to make a truth-revealing potion, but as his recipe would take 100 years to craft, he had sent her to speak with Russilon of the Alcadnos. Xenon went to speak with Russilon, who asked him to bring homunculus blood. After bringing it to him, Xenon asked about the truth-revealing potion. Russilon revealed that the homunculus's blood was the truth-revealing potion, which was the same thing that he had told the girl. Russilon laughed at Bedin's naivety in believing that the girl was harmless, as anyone who could defeat a homunculo, and obtain its blood was clearly dangerous. Russilon then asked for the blood that Xenon had collected as the price for the information that he had shared. He also gave Xenon some free advice and told him that secrets had a reason to be kept secret, and that once uncovered, he would need to pay the price, whether he liked it or not. Xenon then returned to Veritas and told Nathaniel everything that he had learned. Nathaniel told Xenon that she suspected that the girl was Orchid, believing she had once been a commander of the Black Mage. She would likely have known about her master's influence in Megatia. She also realized that Glimmer had manipulated others in order to gain access to life creation, so that he could accelerate his research. She realized that they needed some sort of countermeasure against him, and asked Xenon to go to her secret laboratory in Megatia, where he would find a document that contained information on the Black Mage's research, which she hoped to use in order to create countermeasures against Glimmer. She told him where to find her laboratory and explained that the entrance was password protected, with the password simply being password. Author's note, I feel called out. Xenon was able to find her notes, but just as he was about to leave, he sensed Beryl's pulse much more strongly. He suspected that Beryl had been sent to Megatia in order to collect more of the Black Mage's research for Glimmer. Having recovered the document, Xenon decided that he could finally confront Beryl, and so he went back inside the laboratory and waited for her to arrive. Beryl soon entered and was surprised to find that he hadn't run. She then asked if he was ready to fight, to which Xenon told her that he had a question that he wanted her to answer. Beryl agreed to hear him out if he surrendered, though she made no promise of answering. Xenon told her that he would never get caught by her, and with negotiations having failed, they engaged in battle that Xenon ultimately won. Beryl was frustrated that she kept losing to Xenon, and wondered if it was because he was the perfect specimen, whereas she was not. Xenon asked Beryl why Glimmer had sent her to Megatia, but Beryl snapped at him not to call their father by his name, claiming that Xenon had no right as a traitor. Xenon was surprised to hear Beryl refer to Glimmer as her father, to which she explained that since he had created her, it meant that he was her father. Xenon told her that Glimmer wasn't any sort of father, especially not to him, as Glimmer had kidnapped him and turned him into a weapon, adding that he was sure that the same thing had happened to her. Beryl replied that who she once was didn't matter, as she was now a Xenoroid. Xenon was shocked to hear that Beryl didn't care about who she once was, to which Beryl explained that it was because she wasn't a failure like Xenon. He asked her what she meant, to which she explained that he was a failure because he had betrayed their father due to emotions and memory. However, she added that she couldn't understand why their father wanted him back, and that Glimmer believed that Xenon was special, despite his betrayal. Because of this, he kept sending Beryl to find him and to return him intact. She told Xenon that she could never forgive him for being a failure and a traitor, even though he was still being treated as Glimmer's favorite. Xenon asked if there was a reason why, if that was the reason why she hated him, which surprised Beryl. He explained that he knew that she disliked him, even though Rudy told him that Xenoroids had no emotion. However, if she still felt such hate for him, it meant that she still possessed emotions. Beryl snapped at him to be quiet and told him that though she was leaving, the next time they met, she would fight with her full power, even if it meant destroying him against Glimmer's wishes. After she left, Xenon reflected on Beryl's words. Unlike himself, she didn't seem to want to become a human, and even denied that she had any human feelings left in her. He wondered why that could be, as her not wanting to be human made her more human than anyone. He then returned to Veritas and gave the documents to Nathaniel. After he told her about Beryl's appearance, Nathaniel wondered if it meant that Glimmer was working against Orchid in order to get his hands on the Black Mage's research first. Over time, Xenon regained much more of his old power. However, he was still uneasy about having learned very little about his past. He wondered whether there was something wrong with him, as Rudy and Beryl were content with being Xenoroids, unlike himself. He wondered if he would ever get his memories back, and decided to speak with Rudy back in Veritas. He asked her whether he should have never left Glimmer's lab and thrown his old past away in search of memories that he would never find. Rudy admonished Xenon and told him that if he had stayed, Glimmer would have turned him into a puppet, and that he could have even been ordered to destroy Edelstein if Glimmer had wished it. Xenon agreed that he shouldn't regret escaping Glimmer, but he asked if it was strange that he was the only Xenoroid who seemed to be obsessed with his memories. Rudy replied that it wasn't strange to want to be remembered, adding that everyone thought differently, even in the same situations. She also added that it was Xenon himself who had told her that being a Xenoroid was more than being a simple robot. Citing the differences between him and Beryl, she explained that his desires to regain his memories made him more human than the rest of them. She also added that getting his memories back was something that he had to do, or that he had to decide for himself, and that it was too painful. If it was too painful, he could always stop searching. However, if he wanted them back, despite the pain, she would support him no matter what he decided. She also told him that the same was true for everyone else, reminding Xenon that by escaping Glimmer's lab, he had gained colleagues and friends who would always support him. As Xenon continued mastering his full power, Rudy reached out to him and explained that Beryl had sent a message asking Xenon to settle their feud once and for all, and that she had threatened to destroy all of Edelstein if he didn't show up. Rudy warned Xenon to take care and told him that Beryl had sent them the meeting coordinates. They traced the coordinates to Glimmer's secret laboratory, which Rudy noted was a poetic location for their confrontation. The Xenon went to the laboratory, where Beryl was waiting. She told him that the laboratory was where they had both been born, and where they would have their final battle. She then told Xenon to come at her with his full power, so that she could demonstrate her superiority over him. After a fierce battle, Xenon managed to defeat her. Beryl begrudgingly acknowledged that she had been defeated, and suddenly asked Xenon if he remembered how happy Glimmer had been when Xenon had been completed. She realized that he likely didn't remember, and explained that Glimmer had told her how every bit of research and every machine that he had ever built had been leading up to Xenon. She also admitted that Glimmer had never once paid that kind of attention to her, which was when she had realized that the day would come when she and Xenon would end up fighting to the end. However, she told him that she never would have thought that he would betray them, and so she had continued to pursue him across the world. She had been furious that he had been stronger every time that they had met, for she had been so sure that his emotions and memories would have made him weaker. In the end, however, she admitted that both she and their father had been wrong. Xenon was shaken by Beryl's candid speech, but Beryl added that their encounter was likely the last time that they would ever face each other, explaining that because she had failed her mission, she would be marked as a defective unit and dismantled. Xenon was shocked, but Beryl told him that even now, he continued to taunt her with his emotions, as he ought to be happy that she would no longer pursue him. Xenon replied that if he had known that she would be dismantled, he never would have come to fight her. He then pleaded with her to come with him back to Veritas, so that he could show her that there was more to life than being the strongest. However, Beryl merely told him that she couldn't betray Glimmer, adding that having failed the mission which she had been created for, she had to pay the price. Xenon told her that it didn't mean that she had to die, but Beryl responded that a Xenoroid never truly died. Xenon told her to stop blaming herself, but Beryl replied that his human logic was confusing. She explained that she was a Xenoroid, which meant that she must obey her command protocols until the end, and nothing that Xenon said could ever change that. Xenon told her that her actions were senseless, but Beryl replied that if that was true, then her whole life had been senseless, and added that she had been bored to complete her mission, and that it was what she intended to do. Xenon pleaded with her one last time for her not to go, to which she told him that they had fought since the day that they had been first created, though she wondered if it would have been any different if they had been normal humans. She suspected that it likely wouldn't have changed, as it was what siblings did best. Xenon continued to plead with Beryl to stay, even as she turned her back on him, a sad smile on her face and a single tear falling from her eye. Author's note: I swear this ending hit me just as hard as Shade's storyline. Xenon returned to Veritas in anguish and told Rudy everything. He decided that he would storm the Vern mine in order to find Beryl, but Rudy stopped him and told him to think. She reminded him that there was nothing but Blackwing's facilities at the Vern mine, and as Glimmer had kept the Xenoroid project secret from even Orchid, he was likely hiding Beryl somewhere that no one else knew about. Xenon asked what they could do, to which Rudy told him that she and the others would look for Beryl. She hoped that since both Xenon and herself were missing, Glimmer would likely keep Beryl alive, as she was the only finished Xenoroid in his grasp. Xenon told Rudy that he felt extreme torment, to which Rudy explained that he was feeling devastation, adding that he had finally become human enough. Xenon asked what Rudy meant, to which she explained that when they had been forced to leave Edelstein for the first time in order to avoid Beryl, he had felt disappointment over leaving his resistance friends, but those feelings were nothing compared to how he felt now, meaning that he had developed his emotions. She also pointed out the irony and how he needed to lose something in order to feel something. Xeno told her that if such pain was what becoming a human meant, then he didn't want to be human anymore. Rudy replied that being a human wasn't always exciting, and that it would sometimes come with negative feelings like anger and sadness. Though Glimmer thought that weapons like themselves didn't need emotions, Rudy disagreed, and claimed that though emotions didn't help directly in fighting, they made them stronger nonetheless. Author's note: for those wondering what happened to Beryl, it's revealed in the Black Heaven storyline that Beryl was marked for dismantling, though she was ultimately saved and eventually became a member of Haven under the new name Bitterbot. She has a small reunion with Xenon after the battle at Tenebris, and though she didn't reveal her real identity, Xenon promises to visit her one day.